every single one of you.
I want you to deal with your problems by becoming rich.
This is my home. They're gonna need a wrecking ball to take me out of here.
Good day, everybody, whether it's morning, evening, or anywhere in between. Welcome to unRekt Traders. Today we're taking a look at Bitcoin. We're using the machine, and currently we're on the monthly. Now we do have quite a bit of bullishness ever since basically November of 23. We're approaching into April, so we've had that nice bullish move in the upward direction. Everything is still more or less bullish with no mean reversions in effect. So as of currently, we have a support at 53,400, which is a price level that almost everyone's looking for. And then we also have the 3.2 above us at 84,500, which again is another price level that the bulls are looking for. Now, if we do a fair value area in here, we do have nice fair value, again, pretty much at that 53,000 level. And then we can kind of more or less extend it back because we kind of have a double imbalance on this. And then that would bring us to kind of a 54 to, let's just say the middle, 52,000 level. So, there's really no been price range in here to kind of determine that this is a fair value area. Kind of like what we do here. We can see here that we do have, this was a fair value area before we continue in that upward direction. Same thing more or less down here as well. So basically consolidation kind of shows you that, yeah, this is kind of where price is valued at, and we can continue from there, or it's not valued at the area and we go down. So in this case, this was, a fair value area of a price, and we continue in that upward direction. So now we do have a bunch of fair value gaps in between that area on our upward direction, but we kind of look at this, the last one, as the one that we want to focus on rather than say this one down here. Coming into the weekly, on the weekly itself, we do have some mean reversions in effect. The 20 itself with the white here is just starting to come into that range. So it is a weak support, but it is a support in itself. And then we're looking at price coming down to that 10 at 63,000 currently, with strong, very strong support actually at the 56,000 level, which would kind of bring us to the midpoint of this candle in here. Now, the weeklies, we got 4 days left. Well, let's just say 5 days left on the weekly here. So it is possible that we consolidate, and then one more weekly brings this 10 up to the 65. This 10 is pretty much our trend line. You can see that we've been above the trend line or basically riding it with the body. Now we did have the wick down to the 50, but again, in the previous video, I said that because of where the 50 and 100 were, even if we did wick down below, the body itself had to close above that 50 range, which obviously it did. So more or less we have been riding that trend line, but we are looking for a little bit of weakness, at least coming into that 63,000 level to a possible 55. But again, this is a weak support. It is there. So it is possible we kind of come down, wick above, and keep going in that upper direction to that 84,000 level. On the 3.2 on the weekly, we are sitting at 91,000. Potential to go up there is there. Take a quick look at the 3-day. 3-day itself, again, we had the mean reversion on the 20 still. 10 gave us a little bit of a push up, which we got, and the 20 held. Typically once the 20 holds, you can kind of see the mean reversion take effect. The 50's somewhat weak support. It's definitely support because we are above that 100, but it is kind of just a little bit above. So price can come to that support level at 65, let's just say 65,400 with a wick to that 20, and then we'll see what it wants to do once we get to that level. On the daily itself, looking at the quasi, we do now have the mean reversion on 100. Nice thing is that 10 came up and pushed us out. I believe in the last video I said that we could see a push up to that 50, which is pretty much what we got at the resistive levels. And now we push back down into that 100. So we've had our one push out, we've come back in, and typically when we see that, the very first time we come into the 100 or into a new Bollinger Band, we have the, it really tries to push out, take out liquidity before coming back in. So we actually have seen that now, and then we can now kind of venture to that downward direction, trying to get to that 55,300. Now are we going to go straight to that 55,300? Obviously not, because we have very strong support here as well at 62,100, and then we also have our our 20 bottom of the Bollinger Band and that kind of stuff. So now will we see that 50 mean reversion probably, very likely 65,500. And then again, that support at 62. Plus we have the 23.2 here at 61.6. So very hard to push through that 3.2, especially since we're in a bullish upward direction here. And then like things would literally have to collapse to go straight to this level, or even below that 200 for that matter. So basically, you know, it's nice that we're in that, locked into that 100 one more time. And likelihood is we will see that 65.6 level. Possible move down to here and then continue in that upper direction, or at least to the 50 anyway, and then try and take out liquidity above here one more time. But we are showing a little bit of weakness here. We do have, you know, this didn't take out the prior liquidity, and we have a lot of bullish candles. The candles to the downward direction are bigger than the candles going to the upward direction currently. So let's see, 4 hour. So on the 4 hour itself, we've already had our mean reversion to the 50, which we got perfectly actually. So you can see that that 50 came in. Once it came in, tried to exit out, couldn't get above that 20, or sorry, the 10 green here, and then it collapsed itself and straight to that 50. Now we have the 10 starting to come back up into that range, so we'll likely see it move back up to the 20 here. Kind of fill in at least 0.5 of this candle, and that would take us to the 70,100 level one more time, or at least to the 10 wherever it is on that 4 hour when it gets to it, and then we'll reevaluate from there. Everything else is more or less within that range. So price is free to move within any of these Bollinger Bands for the most part. So we do have the 20 as our first support level, obviously at 68,700, and then our resistive on the 50 at 70,500. So we're kind of stuck within that range until we start to, everything kind of starts to curl and push trend to the downward direction. And we already have this possible target on the 50 hit. So I'll jump into the Nexus here. I don't know if there's any point of looking at the 1 hour, because it changes so fast that by the time people view it, it's for the most part the targets have been hit. But yeah, so we have the mean reversion on that 50 in the upward direction. It is pretty weak though. You know, we're kind of just riding along that 50, following through to that 20. We've already hit the 200 perfectly for our target from the drop down once we came in for mean reversion. So the possibility is that we do get up to that 70,500 level and then come down. We'll have to see how it plays out, but likely it probably will in all actuality, and then kind of go for another level down. Let's go into the Nexus here, and we'll take a look at the higher time frames first. Again, on the yearly itself, you know, we still have this pivot down here at 34,000. Hasn't been hit. We did hit the top of the range, so I can classify it as this whole range being hit, but the pivot itself technically hasn't been. This yearly, you know, cleared out real nice, so there's no need to come back into this yearly at all for the most part, unless it wants to make new lows. And this pivot here is a little concerning, but I'll have to see how it plays out. More or less, we hit the quarter. We almost hit the pivot on the quarterly here before continuing in that upward direction. And then, you know, we did come down into this quarterly. Now we do have this pivot sitting here at that 61.3, which is kind of where we're really expecting price to come to. And it is showing weakness, not being able to get above this previous 3-month high currently. So if price does come down to here, then we could see a push up, try to take out the pretty well equal level liquidity up here coming into this yearly R3, or we do kind of continue to collapse in that downward direction. Now we don't have to really worry too much about being bearish until we get below the quarterly at 56,000, and then from there we'll be looking at that 3-month S1 at 48.7, or worst case scenario. Let's take a look at the monthly and the weekly, and then we'll call our quits. So again, naked monthly here, and that's kind of sitting at 58,400. So we're starting to see quite a bit of confluence for that price, to be honest. And then we have the 55.7 for the actual pivot. On the monthly itself, you know, we are looking for a continuation in that upward direction, just because this range is higher than the previous. So we are looking for that upward direction to take out the previous month high. As of right now, we're failing to do that. So that is showing a bit of weakness. So we did get above the range, and then kind of started to collapse on itself. So it is a little bit of weakness in price action, but we do have to still get below this monthly here, which is at 66.5 to continue in that downward direction. Now we have fallen straight through, kind of rallied, pushed back up. So, you know, in all actuality, we would have to get below that 64.6 to take out liquidity down here, and more or less come right to that previous month low at 59.4. Now with this month being a naked, you know, there's that high probability that we do come back to it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be this month that it does it. It could be the next month. If it doesn't happen within the next month, then we're looking at possible, on average, it's about 4 periods before it kind of comes back. It can be longer, but you know, there's a certain probability. So come into a smaller time frame so we can take a look at the weekly, and then this analysis will be over. All right, so on the weekly itself, we are bearish on the weekly for Bitcoin. Now we did open above weekly. Typically when we open up above the weekly, we look for a continuation to the upward direction to get to the previous week high and take it out, which we did. We actually made it to weekly R1 and then showed weakness. And then once we fell through that previous week high, we look at price coming back into that weekly, which more or less tagged it perfectly right to the pivot itself. So once we fell through that previous week high, then, you know, it was a 3.41% return. And to be fully bearish on the weekly, we had to fall through this range here. And then once we fall through the 67.8, then we can look at this as being our next supportive level, or the previous week low, taking out liquidity on the previous week low, and then trying to get into that WS2. So as of right now, if we were just trading the weekly nexus, we're really looking to kind of get below this point here. And you know, we've already, if I kind of zoom in a bit, we can see that this is only a 15-minute, but you know, more or less we had let me zoom in a little bit more. So, you know, we're starting to get bigger candles, more or less to the downward direction, taking out, we're breaking structures basically. And then even here with this nice move candle, breaking structure, more or less move back up into this fair value gap, and then we'd be looking at price to try and take out this liquidity here, basically coming to this lower level and then try to push lower. So that's kind of what we're hoping for, and we'll see if it plays out that way. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you like the content, hit the like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. God bless.
Visit unRekt.me and download our free powerful indicators, and join our community of traders in our Discord server and get full access to the Machine Suite indicators, the Nexus Suite indicators, and the Nexus Screener.